Hello, world. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a special guest with us. My name is Brandy Camacho. I'm with the developer relations team here at cLabs, working with the Celo Foundation. I'm here with a special guest, Anil. Anil, thank you so much for joining today. Maybe you can share a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Hi, I'm Anil. I'm the co-founder of HeyMate. We are enabling micro entrepreneurs to grow their peer-to-peer social commerce business. I'm based out of Berlin, and my backdrop is cLabs office at the factory in Berlin. I'm happy and thankful to the cLabs team to host us here.
That's fantastic. So you're part of the ecosystem. You're actually part of the community, I would like to say, because you're there right now showing yourself in our Berlin office, kind of tempting me, kind of wish I was there. It looks fancy. I love the demonstration you shared earlier. But you are a bit of a leader too in the space in the sense of adopting native development with Celo. Maybe you could share a little bit about HeyMate and the use case of native development and why that's important.
Sure. So I do have a background with SDKs a bit. So in my let's say past life, I did a previous startup which also involved making an attribution analytics SDK for the mobile app ecosystem. So and there was those are also native SDKs. I was back in 2013. Things have changed a lot since then, but still predominantly mobile app ecosystem is still largely native. And for a mobile first blockchain, which is the USP that Celo has, I think it's great to be able to use some of the capabilities, and being native allows us to on one hand capture a lot of the value that both platforms offer, and a big ecosystem of third-party tools, being able to troubleshoot, being able to benefit from a lot of the frameworks that have developed over time to support native development. So that's why we went that route to offer the best experience that's possible on each of those platforms.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it's something to note about the versatility of native development. The market is saturated, for instance, with Android. There's so many devices available, Anil, so many devices. You're talking about different user experiences, right? Like now we have foldable phones that have a different bit of UI for the interface, the way that you handle the view controller. These are some things that are like very pro towards native developers because you get this tooling immediately. And then you can also test your use case for various saturated devices on the market to make sure the user experience is meeting your use case. And this is also true for iOS. So you have Android saturated, iOS is a little bit more controlled, but still you always get the latest and greatest full control, especially when it comes down to permissions, which is a little bit different in regards to some of the cross-platform options, which I'm not saying they're bad at all. They each have their pros and cons. But exactly. I love the native mobile development side, especially when it comes down to performance and accessibility from the hardware abstraction layer.
Yeah, so do I.
Yes, cool. So when you think about DeFi, mobile DeFi, is native mobile important to the DeFi revolution that's happening right now in blockchain?
I think yes. I think there's so much of activity going on in the DeFi space. And if you look at DeFi becoming mainstream, and if you want to suddenly offer Web3 type of capabilities to traditional Web2 companies who are all on native mobile apps, then the easiest thing would be for them is to drop in a native SDK. That's what they've been used to. If they want to use third-party services or completely new capabilities, they just drop in a framework, build, and launch, right? That's what the native world is used to. And I think that's, if we want to offer DeFi, make that mainstream and plug that into existing ecosystem, developer ecosystem, then that's how I would expect it to grow.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because it also provides additional future proofing too with your development on the native side, especially as a platform continues to expand its mobile first protocol offerings. There's a lot of base protocol layer services available. We have Otis, we have so many things that are in the works, focused on the mobile first blockchain side of things. So if you want to connect to those and you have a native app, it's just nice to service that and know that you're not having any type of bottlenecks in the way. So I kind of want to share with you my current experience, and also to the community. I wanted to share, just in case if you're interested, maybe you're an existing mobile developer, maybe you're checking out Celo and you're like, I want to build for a mobile first blockchain. I can relate with you. I'm going to share a little bit about my experience. Anil, do you mind if I share my screen real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, cool. I want to share this. Give me 1 minute. I am a Google Meet Pro. I was sharing earlier with Anil all these different stream services. They each have their way of showing. So I'm sharing my screen right now. I just want to go over quickly like my experience, and then Anil, I would love to touch base on this after I'm done with this quick presentation, and we'll contrast. So configuring the development environment for Celo. First thing I had to do is obviously install Android Studio. There's different ways that you can develop on Android. I like Java. You can use Kotlin. It's all up to you. Nonetheless, you need an IDE, a development environment. So then I needed to SDK, and I discovered that the community has some support for a Java SDK by Blaze Tech called the Celo SDK Java. I reviewed the README file. I installed those dependencies. Oops, sorry about that. And then the really important part is that it's a wrapper, right? The Celo SDK is a wrapper that depends on Web3J. So in my use case, I wanted Android, so I need the Web3J core for Android. And in this example, I used 4.6. Then I synchronized Gradle. And this is where some interesting things occurred. I noticed that Gradle was coming up with errors, so I started investigating. I found out that the hosting within the repository was no longer available. So this caused a bit of a bottleneck on my project. So then I went through and said, okay, let's build the library. Because what else am I going to do? I can't access it. Gradle's throwing up some errors. Typically, the best way to circumvent those issues is to build the library yourself and then include that into your code base and reference to the library locally within your project. And that's exactly what I did here. So I had to do the Gradle clean, build, X-test. You can see that line right there. And then I had some issues with Gradle 6. It's like one issue after another. Build with an exception. You can kind of see some of the problems I ran into here with this screenshot. And all I want to do is just build a library as fast as possible. Like I'm ready to explore. So I continue to go through and I utilize Brew. Brew is one of my favorite package managers on OS X. I Brew installed Gradle. I went through Gradle and made sure it included version 6 because in the previous reference, I believe it was version 7. If you look down there, incompatible, making it incompatible with Gradle 7. So it has some issues with versioning. So now that I installed Gradle version 6, then I had to make sure that my Java development environment was up to par with the correct versioning. And I ended up having to install OpenJDK. I like the openness of JDK, so I installed OpenJDK. And sure enough, that worked out well for me. I was able to build my dependency for the library, include that into my project. Here is a screenshot of what that looks like, because if you don't know, I'm sure if you built mobile apps or if you're used to Java, this is a normal process. But if you're new to it, it's kind of confusing at first. So I wanted to go through this experience. At this point, it's all about just including it into your library. I moved the file in. This is part of the refactoring inside Android Studio. Anytime you rename or make any changes, you need to refactor your code base. Include that in, and this is really important. These are the two core dependencies to develop right now with Android for Celo, is that you need to include the Celo SDK Java. Then you also have to include the Web3 library. Since I'm focusing on Android, I need to use the Android one. And the rest here is any dependencies that you need for your use case, but these two are the core. So now that I have that, I have access to CeloKit. I just set up a callback routine here, so that way I can load, because I was using fragments between views. Now that was done in the background. I can go ahead and synchronize, utilize the Web3 library, instantiate Web3 object, and I was able to create my little app. Really simple app, loads up, brings up information about an address on the blockchain. But hey, that's like the first step. You want to connect to the blockchain. You want to retrieve information from an account. And then from there, you can continue with building out your use case. So I was able to synchronize with the Celo blockchain. and then I was able to view, and then also in this case, I had some deep linking going on. So if you're interested in native mobile development, please take a screenshot of this QR code or navigate to the Bentley link right up there. We would love to hear from you. With that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, Anil. I know this.
Hi, guys. I think you can still hear me, and I'm going to share my screen now. Okay, so here we are. So let me talk about native mobile SDKs for Celo, mobile first blockchain. So what I'm going to cover is high-level overview of SDKs, differences between them, the challenges that we had with using the Java SDK, some of them that you saw. Brandy walk you through that, and a quick shout out to our awesome Java Android developer Yashar here, who got into a lot of these things and had to let's say navigate a lot of these things, and some of the inputs are from him, and also to Srideep, who's pioneering the Celo iOS Swift SDK. So I'll talk about that soon. So as a Celo app developer, you pretty much have three options to participate within the Celo ecosystem. Run a new Celo node, become a validator, or build apps that utilize the Celo blockchain. The SDKs that are currently available are the JavaScript SDK, which is very up to date. It has all the packages that you need to talk to the Celo contract kits. And then you have the Java SDK. As you can see, it's quite outdated. It's from late last year, and the Python SDK was last touched in November of last year. The Java SDK only covers the contract kit, and there was still work needed to be done to, let's say, truly fit with Android. I'll talk a little bit more about that soon. So what you can do with the Celo SDK, you can communicate to the Celo network, pretty much call the smart contract functions or trigger transactions, which is via the contract kit. You can access all the official Celo contracts, including IRC20 and also the exchange contracts. Some of these services that I list here, they are in the JavaScript SDK, but not in the Celo Java SDK. So things like Otis to look up phone number identifiers, perform attestation to link a user's wallet to their phone numbers, and lately the Wallet Connect 2.0 interface, which enables different wallets to be used in these use cases. Finding your way around the Java SDK, like for example, if you want to host the user's key and only use the IRC20 contracts, that's pretty much fine. But some of the documentation is outdated in this regard, and there are challenges going around the SDK. Some of which you saw when Brandy shared the whole the build and the challenges with compile and things like that. Next to that, once you have that working, you would need to have the knowledge around how the Ethereum-based networks work, how do smart contracts work. You need to understand how the Celo what different Celo contracts do, how they interact. You'll have to go down to understand the contract source code. Same thing, like if you want to understand how to get a wallet address for a phone number, more challenging. So our developer, he had to look at multiple graphs, study source code in multiple Git repository to understand that. So he really had to go down, and we went through all that, and we paved our own path. So we went down the native Celo SDK. We changed certain things in the Java SDK as well. So what Brandy shared, this whole org.web3j, that's a different repository which was forked and then changed to support Celo. We had to go down in that SDK to make changes so that it could support lower Android API levels. We added the missing implementation for Otis and the phone number lookup. We added the attestation process to the SDK. We built an abstraction over that SDK so that it's more developer friendly. I'll show some sample code on that. However, it still lacks unit test cases to test all the Celo contract wrappers, and all contract kit wrapper API calls are still not covered in the SDK. The iOS SDK is under development. I'll talk more about that very shortly. So sample code where we try to make it simple. If you wanted to, an address for a phone number, or you want to know whether this phone number is assigned to this user. There are convenience method signatures that you see here. How can we improve going forward? So we talked about shortcomings. We talked about challenges with build as a community. We would want to have, let's say, we want to reduce the learning curve for the developer community. So we took a stab at it, try to make an abstraction SDK. We will share that as well going forward. But an effort has to be made to basically keep it in sync for developers across platform, iOS as well as Android. As we make changes, as the code changes, repositories need to be in sync. We don't want not up-to-date code base. So there has to be some effort to keep the SDKs updated. And that also calls for a better communication between the SDK development team. So that's us, the community, and Celo Labs core team who are making changes to the contract Celo smart contracts. Now we have that thanks to Brandy. She's from developer relations and keeping all those threads in sync. So thanks, Brandy, for that. Our wish list, if there is, and a roadmap that we would want to validate with the community, and would be great if you could fulfill that survey that was dropped in Brandy's deck, is to have better fiat on-off ramps that can be easily embedded into the Android and iOS SDK, because we've had quite some struggle with that. Going forward, we might want to see more comprehensive way for communicating with Celo smart core contracts, and also maybe supporting things like NFTs within the SDK, and so that the developers don't need to know what a smart contract is, and they can easily use some of these capabilities in their, let's say, native apps. An example of that communication for such an SDK would look like this. For example, if you want to look up an exchange contract to make some calculation, or you want to use a specific exchange contract, or you want to access an NFT contract, a very simple way to do some of these things. So that was the kind of lowdown on the Android side of things. We're working on the Celo iOS 50 SDK. So we looked at, because we are building native apps also for iOS, and we also are building the web application. And we saw that there was no iOS 50 SDK for Celo, so we said, we'll build one, and we're looking to get also support from the community, other native iOS app developers. Please touch base with us. We'd love to have you in this journey. We started with comparing what's out there. So we researched a few Web3 Swift frameworks or 12 different criteria from developer community support, how many contributors, number of forks, and how are their interfaces, performance. We did security scans in some of these SDKs as well. And finally, the decision was to fork the MatterLab Swift SDK. So that came out. It's a lot of forks on that, pretty active community. So we went with that, and we are modifying that to support Celo. We also looked at some key management mechanism, but making sure that we stay non-custodial, as in if we provide some sort of a backup for custody of keys, we want to ensure that we are not seen as parties who are either having control of those keys, or in a way, if our infrastructure gets compromised in some way, that those keys are let's say compromised as well. So we looked at Apple's Secure Enclave support, which is a hardware feature on Apple A7 and later processors, which stores only 256-bit elliptic curve private keys. We can't import pre-existing keys, so that's a bit of a challenge there. Keychain is a very familiar mechanism for saving passwords and things like that on the Apple ecosystem, and we are proposing to go with this. We'd love to hear from the developer community for some of their ideas. iCloud is one place where that can also work, and some wallet providers have done that, have gone down that path, where you can have ways to recover in case you forgot your password, and you can have someone else help you get access to it. There are also cross-platform key management if you want to have keys that go across across platforms, then you start getting into the realms of custodial type of solutions. So that's a bit more tricky. The current status on where we are with the iOS SDK, we're working on the first module. That would pretty much be the base for building future contract wrappers. So we are covering in their first, let's say, sprint is account creation, key management, address management, and the basic contract kit invocation. We're on the verge of finishing all these and QA and building the reference app, and we would release that as a first milestone to the Celo community and get your feedback. So that would be quite helpful if, as a community, especially a shout out to native iOS 5 developers, if you could take a look and provide us feedback. We'd love to work with the community to get this in a very good shape. Our wish list is, or let's say dream would be that if you were able to support some way of, mini apps, right? So Apple has this app clip, which are like extensions for apps, and pretty much looking at how we can have a mechanism of supporting not everyone having to implement a wallet. So if we already have a host app, that how could you have extensions of third-party apps use and invoke signing functionality from a host app or a super app, as we would like to call it. So that's pretty much what I have on the iOS side of things. So again, would be great. We are looking for support from the Celo native iOS Swift developer community. Please, for getting in touch, fill out the survey. There's also contact details. So we definitely would love to get in touch with you and see if we can work closely and collaborate with you to make an awesome Celo Swift SDK for the entire community. Thanks.
Well done, Anil. Thank you so much. And thank you for improving as I got disconnected from the cast. Perfect job. I really appreciate it. I told you I had some difficulties with flavor flipping these Streamcast solutions.
Right.
So nonetheless, superb job. I'm excited for what you're doing. You know this. I've been working with you for a little bit in regards to the development and strategy for implementing a new SDK for the community. And I love the fact that you're focusing in parallel both iOS and Android, which is touching base for both developer ecosystems. So is there any tips that you would like to share for getting started? Right now, there was some hurdles. I kind of shared them during my slide deck. Is there any other tips that you would like to provide to native developers moving into the space?
I think we would want to, so we will basically roll out the changes that we made to the Android SDK and merge that back to the Blaze Tech repository and try to see if we can, make it easier for first-time developers to access that. So that's something that's on our plate to do that. That would be a good start, so that you don't get into these problems that Brandy you walked through. Documentation, of course, is another thing that's also something to fix as well. I think on the Android side, that's what the tip would be, that look at the abstraction that we've done and maybe tell us if that simplifies, is that an SDK, a version of SDK you would love to work with, or would you love to really go down and understand all the details of how Otis works and nitty-gritties of the Java SDK. And I think that the learning curve on that is a bit tall right now. So
it's cumbersome. It's cumbersome. That's why I love the fact that we're focusing on this initiative for the community. It's definitely community driven. So if you're interested, you have some skills in both iOS or Android, either or, jump in, participate with us. We like to develop this for the community to be a strong tool set for your development needs. We need support. It's community, open source. This is the way it should be. So look forward to it. Fill out our survey, because what we're going to be doing is following up with all the folks that went and submitted to our survey. We're going to provide some links as we consolidate our repositories. Like you mentioned, Anil, you'll be submitting to Blaze Tech. So we have some work to do. We're going to communicate with BlazeTech, make sure that we have those merged in. We have some documentations. There's a lot to do here. So what we're sharing today is more about like what the future holds for mobile native development with Celo. It's not long. It's actually near, like, and within a few months, we expect to have major segue on this, and we plan to continue to foster support, especially working with fabulous folks like Anil at HeyMate, who actually depend on the native development for their use case. What a better time to build resources for developers. So we would love for you fill that survey out. I would share my screen. Maybe Joe, you can send that link. We'll make sure to add the link in the YouTube restream. We're on Crowdcast right now. I believe the links that are being shared in the chat are visible for everybody that's reviewing and live right now. So please fill out that survey. Thanks, Joe. Perfect. Anil, I just want to say thank you again. I'm so excited for this. It's so cool. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity, and love to work in the Celo ecosystem. Thank you for that.
It's fabulous. All right, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. That was a little bit about mobile native development with Celo. You learned some of the hurdles right now that exist today. If you want to start today, go to BlazeTech SDK repository, download it. If you're running into troubles like I did, you're going to want to compile that library, include it into your project, and then enjoy your development for your use case. I'm so looking forward to making traction on this and also experimenting with iOS. How cool. I can't wait to see in parallel two native apps working the same way, different experiences with the way they handle view controllers. And I love the fact that you're focusing on modularization for reusable components that go in and they look native in regards to experience as they plug in, kind of like deep linking. So super good job, Anil. I'm so excited. I'm excited for the community. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Anil, for participating. Have a great day.
Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.